You get sent back to September 10, 2001 to prevent the attack on September 11th. You have no proof of what's going to happen. How will you prevent the attack? Start saving up and start buying Amazon stocks, then Bitcoin and become a billionaire. Wait, what was the question? See, what scares me is that if you invested like 10K into Bitcoin, it would butterfly effect into Bitcoin having no worth. Unless there's a flood of people traveling back in time to buy up Bitcoin, one random guy buying enough in 2009 to set himself up for life in 2020 will have no effect on the market at all. 500 Bitcoin would more than set you up for life at today's prices and wouldn't even register as a blip on the radar in 2011. If enough people were able to travel back in time to affect the Bitcoin market, we would have a whole slew of new issues to worry about. Call the World Trade Center Chief of Security John O'Neill. He was a retired FBI agent who had investigated the bombing of the USS Cole. I reckon he would take the call seriously and inform the FBI. Hopefully they will listen to him. When I was in middle school, there was this time for a few months when someone would call in a bomb threat like twice a week. They'd send us out to the playground while they swept the rooms, which is stupid since we always gathered at the same place, so if they wanted to get us they'd put it in the playground, but that's neither here nor there. The point I'm making is they happen so often with nothing happening they eventually stopped evacuating us. I wonder how often the WTC got bomb threats that they wouldn't evacuate the whole building based on one person's phone call. Especially with original posters saying we wouldn't have any proof in this scenario. Good point. The difference here is that O'Neill would be given specific information like the names of the 19 terrorists and the flight numbers. That would give credibility to the call. A call to the airlines to confirm the names given matched the passenger list would get the attention of the feds. Gotcha. I took original posters saying we had no proof meant we couldn't have flight numbers, names, etc. So did I at first. I argue that the proof is the matching names on the passenger list, not the names and flight numbers. Call and bomb threats to the specific airports with the flight numbers. Even back then they probably would have been taken seriously enough to delay the flights and cause enough investigation to find a hijacker or two. That's a good solution. I was thinking call in a bomb threat to the towers, but that wouldn't stop billions in property damage and loss of life from firefighters and other support staff. They'd also probably take a bomb threat at an airport more seriously than at the WTC. I don't know if one phone call would be warrant enough to evacuate the whole WTC. It might be enough to stop them at the airport though. Ever hear of the man who predicted 9/11? A man named Rick Rescorla had come from Wales and enlisted in the US Army. Was at the Battle of Ya Drong in Vietnam. We Were Soldiers is based on this, and afterward was hired for security at WTC. He stated many times that not only was it a soft target but they tried truck bombs, as they did in 1993, and kamikaze aircraft attacks. No one listened. Edit, he died in the attack trying to lead people out. More importantly, he had his entire company run drills in the event of similar situations and told all Morgan Stanley employees in the WTC and nearby buildings to ignore the Port Authority's instructions, to remain at their desks, and evacuate immediately. Only 5 of the 2,700 employees under his protection died. That is the most amazing thing to me. He made them practice every 3 months and had evacuation plans in effect. Even visitors were shown the emergency exits. The 5 that died were above the point of impact, and Colonel Rescorla was the 6th person from Morgan Stanley to die. He was last seen running back into the building because he was not about to rest until he knew people were safe. I did on a speech on him and had to take that part out because I started to cry every time. There are flowers laid for him at Morgan Stanley headquarters every September 11th. It was a highly covered event in the company for 15 years. They only stopped a heavy remembrance after 15 years to follow the general tone down that was occurring. This is the crap we should #never forget. As bad as it sounds, the scale to which we observe somber events like this has to diminish over time, otherwise mankind would eventually be spending half of every day in remembrance of one tragedy or another. Yeah, fair enough. Username checks out. Laughing my butt off. We live amidst the battlefields and cemeteries of history. All of us have been victims of past chaos and war. Most of us have bloodlines from the central disasters of previous eras. Genghis Khan and Charlemagne are our ancestors. We live because our own families survived plague, famine, pestilence, and war. Those horsemen have ridden through many times. There aren't enough drops of salt water in the sea to properly mourn all those lives. What a brave man. Happy Cake Day. Legit just made me tear up. If he had the entire staff of Morgan Stanley taking part in evacuation drills every 3 months, people were listening. My stats teacher from high school was an employee for Morgan Stanley at this time. Because of that man, he only lost one of his co-workers in the office that day. I had not heard of him before. Thanks for sharing. Is definitely worth a read. Web link. I remember reading this a few years ago. His widow watched the tower he was in fall on live TV, knowing he was still there trying to save people. I can't even imagine. Yeah, I know about this guy. I'm just wondering if some schmohawk getting in contact with this guy having no proof would achieve an evacuation of the WTC. Probably not. But if you tell people they have 15 minutes from the first attack to the second, you might get people hauling ass out after the first. You'd probably save lives, but not prevent the attack like original poster was asking. Right. Given that, calling anyone at the WTC wouldn't do much. Unless you could convince this guy to call the airports on your behalf and relay the info. F. Just read his wiki, and I don't normally cry over reading random things online, but crap, this got damn close. Considering the WTC was actually bombed in 1993, a bomb threat may have been enough to evacuate the whole place. They would take it very seriously. There was a bombing of the WTC in '93, so it's not unthinkable it could happen again. Would they evacuate with no proof though? I imagine a famous place like the WTC got prank bomb threats a few times. Just tell the operator you're super serious. Just tell the operator you're super serious serial. Well, Man Bear Pig did make it into the US Congress building, so they'd probably take a biological warfare threat seriously. I'm going to release 80 tons of anthrax in the ventilation system. Bam. Evacuation. 80 tons of anthrax seems like a lot. Like, that'd kill a continent. I don't think that many people were as scared of anthrax until around a week after 9/11. Include the specific flights, and I believe this would at least be enough to have all passengers scream, thus leading to finding the terrorist on board that were responsible. The aftermath though would be convincing the government that you aren't also a terrorist. Just call the FBI office from a payphone. They had enough intelligence to know that there was a plan, and that it might happen, but didn't connect the dots in time. Edit. Say it's flights 11 and 175 from Boston, flight 77 from DC, and flight 93 from Newark, and that it's Osama bin Laden's people. That should do the trick. Sure, but they'll probably put your call in the crank file and you end up as a footnote somewhere deep in the 9/11 Commission report, at best. I think bomb threats are usually taken pretty seriously, especially if you give the names of the passengers and flight details. Payphone. Wow, that takes me back. You don't remember what it was like flying before 9/11, as screening was not as intrusive as now. Hell, those box cutters were not banned and they likely wouldn't have taken them if found. People are forgetting things were much different. Bomb threat to the specific plane numbers. Yep, I got on board planes pre-9/11 with folding knives, nail clippers, etc. One guy took my knife, opened it, measured the blade, then gave it back to me. People could hang out with you right at the gate before boarding, they just went through a metal detector at the security screening. When I was a kid, I went to Disney and they sold wood and steel Pirates of the Caribbean flintlock-looking cap guns. The security guy asks my dad, "Hey, this isn't real, right?" "No." So the guard, laughing out loud, looks down the barrel and pulls the trigger. And if that doesn't work, start calling 911 and radio stations as to what is happening. The fourth plane fought back after being notified of what their fate was. The first three might fight back too if they heard what can happen. That would probably work, but wouldn't this just cause 9/11 to happen on a different date? I'm curious if there is a solution to stop it completely. Didn't we know where the terrorists spent the night? Shoot them. Simple and realistic, I like it. Only problem is who will shoot them? Unless you can prove 100% their plot, maybe you can. I'm not sure what evidence they have on them, then you go to jail for life. Pretty much. With the knowledge that you have prevented a national tragedy. I would imagine it took a ton of planning to make it happen, and once it was prevented and the rest of the plot came out, there would be security changes to accommodate. Probably not to the extent that actually happened, but it would have become harder to be successful. By all accounts, there were quite a few indications that should have been happening already. I believe the flight school that trained the hijackers reported them as suspicious, for one thing. You have to bear in mind that 9/11 was, by far, the biggest terror attack on American soil ever. Prior to that, the USA didn't really take that sort of thing terribly seriously. This was an institutional problem. So, sure, you might get the person on the end of the phone quite worried, but they'll pass your concerns up the chain, and sooner rather than later it'll hit someone who will think, nah, I really don't think that's terribly likely. Specific intelligence about specific flights would trigger a response. Vague intelligence, these guys aren't learning how to land, is harder to justify. Al-Qaeda, headed by Osama bin Laden, who attacked the USS Cole in October 2000, has hired 20 men to take over flights United 93, 175, American 11, and 77 on the morning of September 11, 2001 to crash them into buildings. 5 Saudi nationals per plane. They wanted coast-to-coast flights because the planes have more jet fuel that can burn. That would get the necessary response. I feel like calling in the bomb threat at that point is pointless. If you contacted the FBI with specific info like these flights are going to be hijacked at these times in this way by these people, they'd probably take it pretty seriously. Right, you have to stop it completely, not delay it. I mean, you've stopped 9/11, it's now 9/12. Give the names of the hijackers during the call. That is a great idea, except do people remember the flight number? Without Google, that is. Well, if you were sent back specifically to stop the attacks, you'd probably have things like that memorized. Or else someone picked an incompetent agent. That's true. To be honest, I overlooked that part of the question. Most of them is if you ended up there, how would you stop them? American Airlines Flight 11. American Airlines Flight 77. United Airlines Flight 93. United Airlines Flight 175. It's been almost 20 years now, and I still remember everything from that day. Seriously though, the FBI party ban will choo-choo right up your butthole no matter what. I'm not so sure that you couldn't avoid detection in 2001 if you just used a payphone in the right place. I wonder if the FBI or CIA etc. have protocols in place for people claiming time travel. Like a code word or phrase. All agents have this code word or something similar so that in the event they get sent back in time to warn of an event, they can quote that or give it to someone else so that they're taken more seriously and treated as a potential ally rather than enemy. If this came out, I honestly wouldn't be shocked. Dang, if they don't, they should. Try to hijack a plane the day before and purposefully fail and pretend to rat them out. That's actually really smart. You could demand a presidential pardon and then confess on your teammates. I'd figure out another way. Call me selfish, but if time travel were possible, I'd have a few more brainstorming sessions trying to hammer out a result that didn't result with me in prison for the rest of my life. 1. Expose 9/11. 2. Buy Bitcoin. 3. Invest in Amazon and Apple. Call into every FBI office with the details. Give up on doing it anonymously. They'll believe it more, if they believe it at all. You'll be accused of being part of the plot and spend the rest of your life in jail. Question is, will you remember the details? Which flights? I can say I remember that there were 19 Saudi hijackers across 4 different net flights. I think flying out of NY? Flying out to California to maximize gas load. Question is poised as you are sent back to prevent. I'd imagine if that's the sole reason I'm being sent back, I'm prepared as F with names, flights, locations, phone numbers, etc. all memorized. Edit. After 10+ hours, holy F, read the title, People. Same place I took my quote from, the title of the thread, also says you have no proof. This means you can't take back your phone, newspapers, pictures, Literally any sort of physical evidence of any kind. I think we need more details on the scenario. Do we just wake up one day realizing it's September 10, 2001, or is Quantum Leap where we have an idea, or is this Terminator style being sent back with one specific task? But I think you are right, we're being sent back with a mission. I'm going with Terminator style. Yeah, I really can't remember any. I'd probably go straight to the WTC and do some stunt to get it evacuated. Might spend some time in jail, but I'll save. I'd probably see if I could do a jump across the 2 towers with my skateboard. That would sort things out. Google says the towers were 200 apart and the longest skateboard jump is 79. You're going to need some rockets on the board. I've jumped 20 homeless men. It won't be a problem. You jumped 1, and you barely made it over that. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.